All right, it is a Friday morning, so let's shift tack this morning and bring you this discussion. With the country just coming out of a national state of disaster, many businesses are still recovering from the economic impact of the Covid-19 pandemic and, of course, the lockdown. At the peak of the pandemic, the country went under lockdown, causing many small businesses to shut down or to find alternative means of an income. But they have found a way to thrive, some of them, and to rebuild what was lost. Let's speak to two small businesses about their journeys. We're joined now in studio by Caro Tapson, who is the co-owner of Linden Loaves here in Johannesburg. And by our Zoom link this morning is Wandile Mdebuka, who is an entrepreneur, Debs Antiques founder. To both of our guests, thanks very much indeed for coming in. And Caro, thank you so much to you for coming into studio as well. I've been smelling the Linden Loaves during the last 5 minutes of our discussion here on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I want to begin by asking you about how Linden Loaves began, because it started with a homemade oven, if I remember correctly.
Correct, yeah. It started a little bit by accident. Mm-hmm. My husband and the baker at Linden Loaves, Matt, the work that we were doing previously, so we were in post-production, we still are, started slowing down during about June, July in 2020, sort of still just after the hard lockdown. And he took the gap to start building an oven that he'd been wanting to build for years, but just never had the time, because we've been baking sourdough for years, but
not professionally.
Not professionally,
yeah.
You know, just at home, just like 2 loaves a week, just for us to eat. Yeah. All our family members and friends always love the bread, so, you know, they'd always ask us for that. But there's a specific type of oven called an Alan Scott retained heat masonry oven, which is made from clay bricks, and it's an oven that you build a fire in and then take the fire out and then use the heat that's retained by the bricks. So the designer of the oven, who passed away, an Australian man, made the plans available online as open source plans. So Matt had these plans. He'd been sitting with them for a while and then just decided to take the gap and build the oven. It did mean quite a few things for our family. Like, we were sitting with a big hole in our lounge in the wall during winter of 2020 while this oven was being built. So it was quite a long trial for us to go through.
But at this stage, are you thinking, no, we want to start a business with this oven? It's still just sort of a passion project.
Totally. We didn't think about that at all. I had a different Instagram account that I was doing some gardening stuff for, like during lockdown, that people were following some gardening stuff on it. And I would post from time to time on that Instagram about the oven being built. And people would say, when are you finished? When are we going to get the bread? When can we buy? You know, that sort of thing. So the day that we tested the oven, we started an Instagram account for Linden Loaves.
Yes.
And we just got followers, and we just got people asking whether they could buy the breads. So we decided, I don't know whether this was brave or stupid, but on the first day that we did a big load, so 10 loaves of bread in the oven, we just said to people, you know, book one and then come and get it. So we had no idea whether it was going to work, no idea how it would turn out. But thankfully it did work. It was a bit chaotic.
Amazing.
And people arrived, bought bread, and then it just sort of started snowballing from there. And that's really how it started.
From 2 loaves to 20, and that's no joke. We'll discuss that in a moment, what it means to increase your quantity in terms of just ingredients and manpower. Wandile, I want to bring you into the discussion. You're the founder of Debs Antiques, also founded in the midst of a lockdown, as I understand it.
Yes, that's true, you know. Before I started this company, you know, it was all about entertainment, you know. But yeah, it was hard and everyone was scared, you know, until the president announced that they need to do lockdown. That means entertainment, we can't travel. It was very hard for us, you know, but, you know, when we started, we were scared, making dough, making food, but, you know, I said no. I have a family to feed, so I need to start something, you know. Like I am, my father used to work at Prestige, and I did temporary growing it protea not in detail. So that worked very well for me. So I started sketching on place, but I was not sure if people would like it. But since from then, you know, people liked it. Until now, they've been supporting me. You know, because of what I'm doing is something that is unique and not easy to find, and it's very touchy to the heart.
So what are the products that you make? Because your company is Debs Antiques, but I'm seeing a whole range of sort of personalized crockery there as well.
Yes, I do your canvases, I do pots, I do cups, satellite bows, canvases. So it's all about creating memories.
It looks amazing. It looks beautiful. And that's what it's about, isn't it, Caro? Finding yourself in one position and trying to pivot. I mean, none of us have been in that situation before, where we're under lockdown and the business that we rely on for an income suddenly can't operate anymore.
Right, the pivot.
Yeah. So your pivot was major.
Yeah, it was. And I think part of the sort of hardest thing about moving now in 2022 is like unpivoting. And, you know, our other work is starting to pick up. And that was a big challenge for us last year, is how do we now suddenly, we were like straddling these two businesses where the one is growing and flourishing and we can't leave it because we've built it and we're really precious about it. But you know, bread doesn't make the same kind of income as working in media. So, but you can't drop that either because you've got clients who are coming back. And so we really were quite thin on the ground, still are to an extent, you know, trying to manage both of these businesses and pivot again because, you know, you're now torn in different directions.
So at the moment you're baking from home?
So we have a studio on our home property where we had our other business, and just with the growth of Linden Loaves, we've moved that all out. We're not having a lot of clients coming in anymore. That's sort of mostly moved online. Yeah. So we've transformed that space into the bakery. The bakery was previously just in a room in our house, which used to be like the spare room. We moved some fridges and mixers and stuff in there. But it just started getting a bit flowery and noisy, and as we grew, so we've moved that down,
I mean, I love baking, but I can't imagine going sort of industrial in my baking. What does that take in terms of, because, I mean, I can't imagine that you're doing any of this by hand, so you must have an industrial size mixer as well, but ingredients, manpower, what does that take?
So we used to do the mixing by hand. Matt used to mix by hand, but it just started becoming so unsustainable. Luckily, we had a friend, or have a friend, who works in the sort of bakery setup industry, and he helped us source a fairly, I guess it's about 30 kg industrial mixer. Yeah. So we do our dough mixing in that. But our bread is naturally leavened bread, so it's not. We don't use commercial yeast. It's natural yeast from the air.
So it's sourdough.
So sourdough, right? So the thing is, it's a very long process. So by having the mixer, for example, that helps to shorten kind of the labor. Yeah. But it starts, you know, at 6 in the morning. It's a 24 hours a day process because when you're not mixing leaven, you're making dough, and when you're not making dough, you're sort of baking.
And the dough ferments for 18 hours, right?
The dough ferments.
So you're baking like ahead of time.
Yeah, so the dough gets done on day 1 and the baking gets done on day 2.
Right.
And then on day 2, the new dough gets done for day 3.
Yes.
So yeah, we go through a lot of flour. Yeah. There's only 3 ingredients in this bread. It's flour, water, and salt. So in terms of flour, we go through about, I mean, I just had about 300 kgs of flour delivered yesterday. So, you know, that would be for 2 weeks. You know, and then water and then salt. We use a natural sea salt.
Amazing.
So luckily for us, the formula is quite simple. I mean, it's long, and, you know, fermentation times, time and temperature are the things that we use to manage. But in terms of ingredients, it's not super complicated. It's not like, you know, well, you know, we just did the hot cross buns, for example. So we just did 3,000 hot cross buns during Easter. And that was a different ballgame for us because we had to get butter, sugar, raisins, spices, all these things that we're not actually used to working with. Yeah. So it was an interesting segue, but yeah.
So Wandile, I want to talk to you as well about this pivot that we're talking about, because you find yourself in one industry and then COVID-19 happens. None of us are prepared for it. And then you sort of try to make things work. For you, what have been the big principles that have taken you from a lockdown business and that's meant that you've survived even after lockdown?
Okay, financially, it started down, you know, because it's something that we have never seen before, especially the pandemic itself. Because for me, since I think I'm 35 now, but the changes financially, I won't lie, it's a blessing in disguise for me, you know, because of if I compare my life before COVID and now, I'm 10 steps away from what I was doing financially in the interviewing business. So I would never say thanks to COVID, but it did help me to pull up my socks, to grind the money, you know. Even though we lost our loved ones, I lost my brother 2 months ago. But yeah, it kept me stronger, you know. But when I started, I didn't know where to go, you know, because of it was not my passion.